For sure. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining DataCon LA 2021. Welcome to the BI Reporting Business Use Cases track. My name is Hannah, your host, and our co-host today is Hestia. We will be moderating the chat and Q&A for you during the session. Today, we have our guest, Wendy, and she will be talking about measuring the moving parts of user experience in Java and .NET applications. Without further ado, I'll hand this over to the speaker. Thanks for being here, Wendy.
Thanks for having me, Hannah and Hestia. Appreciate all the help getting here. And it's so good to see women in technology. It's pretty awesome. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining.
I think
It
Wendy froze.
her
I think there's some technical difficulties.
I will reach out to Wendy.
So this talk is for you. If you
You're back
okay.
on.
Wendy,
Awesome.
can you start over? You froze for like a good 1 minute.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's anything else I should shut down on my computer just to be safe. All right. Close that. Okay. I guess just holler if it happens again. Okay. Welcome to my talk. And this is for you if you are in DevOps, if you're a site reliability engineer, if you do performance monitoring, if you're an administrator, even a coder. This talk is for you because we're going to cover all of this in one conversation in a 40-minute hour, right? Here we go. So here's the agenda. I'll talk about some of the issues with applications and performance problems. And just so you know, this is not covering microservices or any sort of Kubernetes containers applications. This is the monolithic monitoring here. And I'll just follow me on LinkedIn. I'll be doing one of those talks at another time for sure. So that'll happen another time. But this one specifically for use case scenarios with Java and .NET web apps. Next, we'll go over into what it means to monitor and get user experience data. And then I'll show you the top-down approach for collecting that data and what that looks like. And then some of the JVM and CLR metrics to watch out for. And then do's and don'ts of monitoring user experience. So the problem is today is developers deploy apps to end users. The end users experience poor performance, and they call and they complain, and then we have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. And how do we fix it? There's still a problem with fixing it because we don't have code level visibility, or we don't know how the business transactions are going. Are they slow? Are they fast? Where's the problem along this huge stack and moving parts of the application? You can see there's a BT. There's a sloth in the bottom right of the screen. He's our mascot. He'll be following us along on the performance journey today. So why is it terrible when a website is slow? Well, what happens is you can lose money. So whether you're delivering products or services, it's basically slow as the new down. It's a new downtime, and you can lose a lot of money. Like with Amazon, they're at $500,000 to $1 million per hour of revenue lost. And it's difficult to fix these problems because it could be anything. It could be anything that is the root cause of the slowness. So we start asking ourselves these questions. what part of the application tier is this slow? If it's code level, which piece of code is it? So there's interdependencies between the tiers, which make this diagnosis a huge challenge. And you have to figure out, is it the web? Is it Java? Is it application code? Is it database? And it could be coming from anywhere. So we have to figure this out. And these days, people use tools, right? So I work for a company called EG Innovations, and we have a solution. And I will show you bits and pieces of it so that we can get to the point of what metrics are important for monitoring applications, because that's the whole point of this talk, is what is important to see when you're measuring user experience for your applications. Doesn't matter how you get the data, but I'll use our solution as an example. Now, in today's world, there are some really bad ways that people are getting that user experience data. And some customers, so some companies are simply using the number of trouble tickets. That's not going to cut it. That's not going to give you empirical evidence of how slow or fast your application is performing. Some customers and companies use the number of support calls. They're not going to give you empirical data either. Or emotional data. Like the thumbs up or thumbs down when you're like in the bathroom, or have you ever been inside one of those business companies' bathrooms, and then they have this little stand kiosk where you can push, how was your experience today? Happy face or sad face? They don't have that for your web applications. And then some people even use surveys to calculate or figure out what emotional data looks like. Still, it's not a real number of performance. And then downtime. Downtime's a tricky one because so many people want to use that number to say, here's how great we're doing. We haven't had any outages. We haven't had any downtime. But we just said slow is the new down. So if you can't calculate what is slow, then you don't have real data either. So what kind of data are we supposed to use? What do we measure? And BT here says anything that affects user experience. So let's take a look at a web application example and what could affect user experience. This is the web apps technology stack that I'm using. So it could be anywhere in the code, the database side, the server side, network, even that virtual layer. And this is, all the elements that make up the web app from browser to server. And what we found at EG is that the best approach to this application data collection and user experience collection is a top-down approach. You start with the users, and then you move to the application tiers, where you have the browser and the server and the networks. And then you move to the code. You get deeper in there. You go down a level to database queries or even third-party calls. So one way that this all rolls up into a single number is something called Aptx. Aptx is a score that measures the user satisfaction with performance of enterprise applications. And it sounds simple. It's really simple to understand, but it's very difficult to measure. Okay, so a lot of people use tools, again, to measure this particular index. And on the left side, you'll see a screenshot from our tool, EG Enterprise, where it has the happy face and the sad face based on the app index. This is a bad screenshot, actually. The bottom one on the bottom left, it should have a sad face, or a straight line smile face, because it's about midway through that scale, right? So it has to be close to 1 in order for users to be quote unquote happy. And this is the connection between the technology measurements, so the technical measurement, all the way to the emotional data side. All right. Feel free to throw out some questions, and then at the end we will see if any of them popped up. Let me keep going here. Here's the actual equation used to get Aptx. So it is the number of satisfied samples plus half the tolerating samples divided by all the samples. Okay, so it's almost like a mean, right, scale. And the tricky part is getting the samples. How do you do that? Well, nobody's expected to reinvent the wheel for this. And so I'm going to show you how EG does it, but more important than that, I'm going to show you the specific metrics that are key. So let's say you do have a tool, but it only gives you, minimal number of metrics. Maybe you could pick and choose these metrics and focus in on them to help improve your application. So what you're looking at now is an end-to-end view of a Java example of a web app. We have the end user on the left side, and then we have something called a real user monitor from EG. So this data is being generated by our software solution. And what it does is it creates a tag and follow approach and uses bytecode instrumentation in your web pages. So it tags the user with a unique ID and follows that user all the way through the clicks that they're doing and everything that they're, all the actions that they're doing in the web page. Okay. And then after they use your web interface, there's stuff going on in the background that we'll get to and we'll talk about. But let's take a look at what it means to follow that user and get their browser information and that front end. It's what we call as the front end, right? So we're going to start there and get rum metrics. Not rum like the yummy alcohol, but the real user monitor metrics. So it's really important to collect these metrics from the front end of the user in order to get their experience, right? It's just part of the puzzle, and it's extremely valuable as a performance engineer. And the main one is page load times. Because if you break down the page load time, it's going to include all of these critical 5 metrics right here. Browser initial request time, network, server, download, and render. That's all that front end user experience, but we're going to tie in a lot of the full action and response times to this. So let's take a look at what it looks like visually. So visually, we've got these pages on the left. Each page has to go through the browser's request times, any activity in the browser that's going to be considered your request time. And then we're going to include network, server, and content download. So you could say roughly that the page load time equation equals all of these things here added up. Okay, that's pretty simple. But what happens when you have these high times? How do you even get to this server time here and calculate it? What's important about the server time? So let's take a look at the back end portion of processing these web requests. And that's going to include the Oracle WebLogic servers and the database servers. So at the beginning, I mentioned we are focusing in on the monolithic classic web application. Maybe in another talk, I will go through microservices, but this is not the one. So what's important with backend Java monitoring? Well, business transactions are very important here. And those include remote calls, web service calls, like maybe you're making a remote call to MasterCard or Visa to take people's money, right? And then calls to any sort of Java service. So here's what that looks like. If you look at the screen, this again is generated by the EG solution here. And we have a way of instrumenting BTM, business transaction monitoring, by kind of inserting ourselves. And if you are in development, you would know what I'm talking about when we say we insert a WAR file onto WebLogic instance, restart the instance, and then poof, we start monitoring all of these transactions. So what I'm going to do now is jump into a live demo, and you can see BT loves that idea. Let me grab my screen here. All right, hopefully that is still coming in. Hold on. It's always sketchy to switch screens. So Hannah,
I was seeing the switch. I see the sign in.
okay, that's the
logo.
one we want. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, I want to make sure you can see that too. I don't know if some of these sharing apps only grab the window, but apparently we're getting the whole desktop area. Okay, we're good. So I'm going to sign into the EG solution. So, and then knowing what you know now, it's all going to make sense, right? It's all going to make sense. So here I have the scenario. And if you're used to something like App Dynamics or New Relic or something like that, this is going to be right up your alley. It's, in my opinion, this is a really simple interface, and it's a lot easier to set up than App Dynamics. Also, it's easier to license because we license by operating system, by server. All right, so here we are on that RUM, the real user monitoring screen with the flow where we're tagging the user and following them. This is rolling up the data though for those page loads. So remember we talked about page load time is super important to know. And it's this screen is like a dashboard. It's giving you the average over everybody. It's giving you the average by country and their load time there, and then average by page groups. And, you know, in actuality, this could be considered response time. So some people's, you know, it's tomato, tomato, response time, page load time. You're still calculating that whole process from end user to the back, all the way to the back to the end user on that web page. So I can also pick the pages. I can pick and choose URLs if I wanted to, and just, you know, have the one. And then if I see, you know, there's this color change and it's very slow, okay, why is it 4 seconds? I can click directly on this server time, and this jumps us into what we saw before. So there's the back end on the right side, and these color indicators show that there's a problem with those servers. So now we're monitoring at the instance level for WebLogic and the server level for the Oracle database. This is just an alert that came up for the database. It says archive error. Not really interested in that. I want transactions. I want to see what's slow. So I know there's some slow transactions going on with this payment page, and I'm going to dive in a little bit more to see who's having slowness in their transactional pages, right? In their web pages. Wait for it to load. I can hear my computer fan turning on, kicking in, right?
Lift off. Like a, yeah,
Let's get ready to lift off.
for
Exactly. Hey, how much time do I have left, Hannah?
sure. I'll
You have
forward that.
about 20 more
Yeah.
minutes.
Okay, great. All right, sounds good. Thanks, you guys. All right, so what you're seeing now is the list of slow transactions, and they're slow because we know what the SLA is. We know it shouldn't be a certain number, so we set that as a threshold. I can see each user here listed, what page they were on, and then the total response time, or like we were talking about, page load time. So I can dive into Annalisa's slow page. And here is the transaction tracing. Annalisa did something on a web page that triggered all of these kind of calls to be made synchronously. And EG is showing you each call. So we have HTTP, we have a web service, we have another HTTP call that goes to remote, service. We have the MasterCard remote call. So all these things are happening, and we're trying to make sure that the user's happy and that they're getting their page loaded. But it seems like there's some slowness. And if you follow the red, it's because of a slow database query. So I click on the database query, and then immediately I know what caused that user's slowness. And we can see the execution breakdown and the exact code that calls the query, etc. So this is a wonderful solution. It's kind of a good way to reiterate what's important for APM or user experience monitoring for everybody on this session. All right. So let me back out of this. Okay. And if you want to see more, definitely you can find me on LinkedIn, Wendy Howard, EG Innovations. I'm just going to kind of go through a little bit more slides here. But that was like our miniature demo of the monitoring user experience. All right, so let's recap the tiers. We talked about what's important with browser monitoring. The request time from the user side. So that's all from the user side, right? And then the content download and the rendering. So there's this slide's actually missing content downloads. There's 3 things there. Then from the server side, we always want to know what the resources are, whether it's CPU, memory, IO, and space. Those are like the 4 main ones. And then the SQL and the Oracle database queries, you should have insight into those, what they are, when they executed, how long they took, in order to gauge your user experience. And then the network, it's important to monitor the latency and the bandwidth. So that has to do with the latency and the bandwidth of the your intranet, basically, wherever your application is being hosted. And then maybe even a probe that will reach out to the end user and check their latency and bandwidth. But that's usually done in virtual applications. In general, response time. It's all about the time that it takes from the end user's request to get to the end and back and get processed, right? And so there's this really cool, interesting quote by a Dr. Jacob Nielsen. So Dr. Jacob Nielsen is a usability researcher who wrote the book on usability engineering. He wrote an article, God, it's been over a dozen years ago, called Interaction Elasticity. It's fascinating. Look him up for sure, because this quote here kind of blew my mind. It says, yes, we know that response times must be less than 1 second for navigation to feel seamless and less than 10 seconds to prevent a user's attention from wandering. These time limits are caused by the human brain structure and are thus firm and stable decade by decade. So unless our brain changes, the rule of thumb is going to be your transaction needs to be less than 1 second to fully process in order for your users to experience that full on, this is a great site. I'm coming back here. I'm shopping here all the time. Or, they're just completely happy with it if everything is under 1 second. And yeah, it's true, about 10 seconds and I'm out of there. But hey, maybe our brains will change, right? Right, Hannah?
Maybe. I mean, I remember the days of dial-up, right? AOL and all that, and and the wait for that, and now it's so different. So different.
It really is. Yeah, I mean, there's tolerance for sure that we put up with, but if your application is critical, that's a different story. If it's something just like it's providing a service or shopping, it's fine if it strays a little bit from a second. But yeah, it's a fascinating article. Check it out. It's called Interaction Elasticity. Other considerations. So if you're dealing with your own, dealing with that Java server, there's the JVM virtual machine. If that's having problems, it can definitely affect your application. So you would need to keep an eye on the heap memory usage, the time that it takes for garbage collections, and then your JVM thread behaviors. Are they getting blocked, deadlocked? Are they waiting? So some of you guys already have tools for these, but EG also does the monitoring automatically for that. And then for .NET applications, you can measure the load failures and the high CPU threads for that CLR, because that can affect your applications as well. For those threads, it might even be good to be able to collect the stack traces to help you make decisions on what just got blocked. I use that once in a while if we see slowness in actually our product. So if we see slowness in our product, we're monitoring ourselves, and I can see the JVM threads being blocked, and then I know where the problem lies. So super helpful to do that. Let's take a look at do's and don'ts of monitoring user experience. What should you do? Monitor both the front end and the back end of your web applications. Keep monitoring TOMA. So TOMA is top of mind awareness. So it may not be something that you work on every day, but it's there, and you need to go back to it once in a while to make sure that you didn't slip and slide and your metrics are going out the window. And also use that data to make decisions. Keep it at the forefront of your mind. Get regular reports and review them. Yeah, I used to get a lot of reports and not review them. And then I realized that we were, kind of backed up, and it took a long time to get caught up with them. Own up and speak up. So if you're an owner of an application or a piece of code or a server, and you see something is wrong based on your data, tell the team. Don't try to hide it and fix it secretly, especially if it's something that you caused. I mean, we're human. We all make mistakes, and I've brought down entire health web applications. Don't ask me how I did that, but but then I turned around and fixed it. Also, consider the network latencies and bandwidth usage, because sometimes those get overlooked with applications. What not to do. Don't do these things when monitoring or collecting application data. Don't ignore the data. It's there for a reason, whether it's good or bad, because if it's good, you can use it to create that, that perfect baseline. Like, we want to stay here. We don't want to get worse as we scale out. Don't blame other teams for poor performance. That's a tough one, because you could pretty much spin the wheel of blame these days, and it can land on anything like network or server team. And that's part of, just being part of the solution. And then don't hide incriminating data. So if you do have bad metrics or slow performance data, it's not even worth it to tuck it away. It's more worth it to bring it to light and show people where improvements can be. And don't just look at isolated metrics. So don't just look at the database queries or the browser rendering time. We saw that it requires a whole picture of metrics to be put together, and then you can make decisions on where to start the improvements, because it's always a trade-off with performance. Always a trade-off. Oh, look, Citrix updates. And if you look at the screen, BT, he wasn't planning on doing any of those anyway, because every day is a Sunday for BT. In summary, here's what you should do for Java and .NET web apps. Collect data from your users. So that's that front-end monitoring. Consider the performance from end to end, including your servers, your app stack, your network, your remote calls, browsers, etc. Consider performance for all of those things. Use a tool. And of course, I work for EG. I'm going to say EG. Use a tool like EG for calculating Aptx. That's a tough one. I've never heard of people trying to do that on their own. And then watch out for those engine issues, JVM and CLR. Now that you've learned how to make your application speed up, BT says, let's go for a run. And he's got his running shoes on. So here's a little one slide sales pitch for EG Innovations, EG Enterprise. We do full stack APM. We license by OS and not by JVMs. Is the one truly converged application and infrastructure monitoring. So it's called APM meets IPM, and then you're able to see the entire web app user experience. And with that, here's my email address. Again, you can find me on LinkedIn. And thank you all for listening and hanging out with me on this beautiful Friday afternoon. I'm coming to you from Central Oregon, and it's a gorgeous day. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Wendy.
You're very welcome. Did you ladies have any questions for me?
I had a question, actually.
Sure.
What's the time scale for implementing like this? What you demoed, for example, like implementing this in an organization? Would it depend on organization size? I'm assuming. Like,
Yeah. We're currently working with a really big manufacturing company. I'm not going to say the name right now, and we are taking it instance by instance. It's we took one instance, we applied the BTM in about 30 minutes, and we started seeing data right away. So if you want to scale that out, you could pipeline it, you could apply it to multiple instances in one shot. So, it just depends. Also, if you want to use it in the cloud, we have a cloud manager, and then that speeds things up really fast. But if you were trying to get it started, I would say it takes a couple hours, to get the application, our software installed. and then instrument the BTM.
That's pretty cool. Pretty fast. Couple of hours. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's super easy. It's actually one of the more convenient APM monitors out there. So,
Cool.
are you in development, Hannah?
No, not yet. Maybe in
Okay.
the future, but no, that's not in the cards. But I could see how, I mean, this could be just super useful. And how businesses like out there could take advantage of this and get more insights about their product and their users.
Yeah, anybody. I mean, DevOps, site reliability engineers, application owners. We do more than just APM. Last year at DataCon, when I did my presentation, I showed the metrics for what you need to monitor virtual ecosystems. So like Citrix and Horizon, everything that pushes out like a virtual desktop. And then I gave a whole presentation on that as well. It's the same product. We do it all. Well, thank you all again.
All right. Thank
That's
you.
everything.
We have
Then
4 more minutes, Hestia. What do you think? Should we wrap it up? Should we
Um,
hang out
since
for
we
4
have
more minutes?
4 more minutes and there are 11 people, I guess we can stay for 4 more minutes and see if there's anybody that have like last minute questions on for Wendy.
Okay. Well,
But I really like your application. I think it's really really useful. It's really cool.
Oh,
I had never seen that before.
yeah. I mean, the best part is the interface. It's so easy to understand that even me, I don't even code anymore. I used to code for like a year and then I was done. I got out of development and now I'm in just basic administration, infrastructure, performance. But I've been in performance since college. So I did performance benchmarking and research. And then I worked for IBM and AMD doing benchmarking and testing. And then I slowly went into more of like Windows server admin. And then I became a Citrix administrator. So I went from AIX all the way to Windows in, a span of 20 years. So so you never stuck with one technology, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm right now. I was a software developer for .NET, and then I became project manager. And right now, I'm working on my PMP exam.
Whoa, that's huge.
Yeah, so I just finally got it approved, so I'm very stoked about that. And I've been studying, just trying to get it done. And then, so I'm taking a break until I get my PMP license.
Good. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, but as a project manager, when I was working, I was doing project management and DevOps, and the reason why I said that this is interesting and I wish we have this everywhere is because this would be really useful in all the companies I worked in.
There's so many black boxes in applications. People look at it and go, I don't know where the problem is. I mean,
right.
You can throw a dart and just guess and be like, maybe it's here. Let's look in here. And then you're looking for months and you're trying to figure it out. So,
yeah. Except you don't have months in companies. Unfortunately, you just have to debug it. And then if you're having issues, the whole team is going to be like, all right, let's all solve this together.
So true. Yeah, I was actually we got 1 minute. I was actually a customer of EG's. So I used to work at the hospital here in Oregon. And we were using different monitoring tools and performance tools. And this was one of them. for the Citrix side. And so I learned how to use the product. I used it to improve the Citrix environment, blah, blah, blah. And then I decided I wanted to go work for them, for this company, and I convinced them to hire me.
What? That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Anything is possible. So, hey,
Awesome.
real quick plug. Women in Technology Summit is coming up in October. So search Women in Technology Summit. And I'm speaking at that. I'll be talking about more performance monitoring and just performance in general of servers and systems. So thank you all.
Okay, awesome. We'll wrap.
I should
then.
get in touch with you on LinkedIn, and we
Absolutely.
can connect. Probably one day we can get coffee or something. Hopefully, when COVID
Okay.
ends.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Well,
Thank you so
Wendy,
much for your
presentation.
presentation.
You're welcome, ladies. Bye.
And
Thank you.
to the attendees, you can contact the speaker directly if there are any further questions. And please provide your feedback using the form that will be provided in the chat box. And thank you, everyone, for joining today's presentation. And have a wonderful day. Thank you for being a part of this year's DataCon LA. All right. See ya.